So we're just a couple days away from the release of The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, and I'll be providing plenty of content about it on this channel, as I am very much looking forward to getting my hands on my copy. With that being said, we do have some exciting and new information regarding the game and the Legend of Zelda series in general. Nintendo just dropped an interview where 3 of the game's lead developers were answering questions. These 3 developers were of course Eiji Aonuma, who is essentially the head of the Legend of Zelda series. Then you had Tomomi Sano, who is Nintendo's appointed director of Echoes of Wisdom. And then there's Satoshi Terada, who is Grayzo's director of Echoes of Wisdom. And just so you know, Grayzo is the third-party developer that helped make Echoes of Wisdom alongside of Nintendo. Grayzo does have a history with Nintendo, and has made several remakes in the past for the company, including Link's Awakening, Ocarina of Time 3D, Luigi's Mansion, and Miitopia. But Echoes of Wisdom is actually the first brand new game that Grayzo has been a part of. So they were very excited to get their hands on it and be a greater part of the creative process. Now, according to this interview, Echoes of Wisdom actually started out as a dungeon creator game, where players could customize and build their own dungeons and have other people play it online. They didn't call it this, but to me, my takeaway is that it was essentially a Zelda Maker game, similar to the Mario Maker games that Nintendo has already released. They even presented a demo to Eiji Aonuma, and this is what he had to say about that demo. Quote, "They showed it to me and told me to give it a try. As I played, I started thinking that while it's fun to create your own dungeon and let other people play it, it's also not so bad to place items that can be copied and pasted in the game field, and create gameplay where they can be used to fight enemies. That was the beginning of the gameplay using quote echoes. The gameplay was shifted from creating dungeons up until then to using copy and pasted items as tools to further your own adventure." Now, I am very excited about the kind of game we're getting in Echoes of Wisdom, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot of disappointed Zelda fans that this isn't in fact Zelda Maker. Unfortunately, they did move on from this topic pretty quickly in the interview. But it does at least show that Nintendo has experimented with the idea of a Zelda Maker game. And who knows, maybe it's something they could revisit down the road. Probably the theme of the interview, though, is how the developers put a huge emphasis on player creativity and freedom. To some of us, including yours truly, this is kind of a touchy subject, because although I love freedom in Zelda games, some of us desire a more traditional and linear approach. This is what Aonuma had to say about this new installment. "I used to believe that the theory behind games was that being set loose from restraints gives a feeling of freedom and growth. That's why old games were designed to slowly lift restrictions that were there at the start. For a long time, game developers like ourselves have made games while firmly believing this theory to be right, and we felt safe creating restrictions in line with it. However, the Echoes gameplay could fly in the face of that theory at times. When you're actually playing, it can be more fun not having the restrictions in the first place. And so we asked ourselves, what do we want to do about this one? Shall we remove it?" And then we gradually began removing those restrictions. Over time, most of the restrictions we thought were necessary at the start of development were no longer needed. It even led us to allow things that we worried at first would provide too much freedom. It's strange, isn't it? It's almost as if introducing some freedom attracted even more freedom. Seeing the layout of the copy and pasting process and hearing Aonuma's thoughts on the gameplay mechanics really has me believing what I already thought before, but even more confidently, that this Echoes of Wisdom game will essentially be for 2D Zelda what Tears of the Kingdom was for 3D Zelda. Some of you will be thrilled to hear that, and some of you not so much. I really doubt this is going to be the most challenging Zelda game from a puzzle standpoint, because the truth is, there's probably a million different ways to overcome an obstacle, and sometimes that's rewarding, and sometimes it feels a bit too easy. But there was another quote before that came from Terada. "At the beginning of the game's development, we were thinking a lot about restrictions on gameplay, assuming that certain things would definitely break the game's mechanics or stop the game from working properly. We had ideas like being limited to using only 20 echoes in a dungeon. Lots of ideas like these made it so you couldn't do things you had previously done. But it would have been frustrating for the players if they couldn't use a solution that worked in a previous situation. So one day, we decided to scrap that approach and not impose any restrictions. Honestly, this quote I see as a bit assuring, because although I am okay with games like Tears of the Kingdom and Echoes of Wisdom, it shows that they at least recognize the importance on having some restrictions on the player, especially in the dungeon format. So rather than this being just some general new direction for the Legend of Zelda games, it sounds like an exception they had to make for the sake of this specific game. At the very least, I appreciate the fact that they're considering the extent of freedom in the dungeon creating process. It's a fascinating article, and it's fun to hear more about the logic of the development process. A link to the article is in the pinned comment if you want to check it out for yourself, and they should be dropping part 2 of that interview sometime today. So what do you guys think? Would you like to get a Zelda Maker game at some point down the road? And is there too much freedom in some of the more recent Zelda games? I look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comment section below. Thanks for watching as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more Zelda and Metroid content, and I'll see you guys in the next video.